Welcome to the special online edition of Carte Blanche's COVID-19 Q&A. I am Masa Gegana. Remember to click on the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. Now, to date, SAA has brought back around 2,000 South Africans of the 3,600 who were stranded abroad during this lockdown. It seems that some countries are more readily available and able to assist with the repatriation of South Africans who have been stranded abroad. So government is making some headway, although there are those who are still trapped abroad. So we'd like to know, what is the holdup here? The Department of International Relations and Cooperation has set up a command center, and joining us this afternoon, we have the Minister of DIRCO, Ms. Naledi Pandor. Minister, thank you so very much for joining us. Minister, if you could let us know, what is the department's stance when it comes to these cases?
Well, good afternoon, Masa, and good afternoon to your viewers. Essentially, the policy of the department and government has been to try and make every effort to support the return of South Africans who found themselves stranded overseas following the introduction of a lockdown in South Africa. As viewers would remember, the initial lockdown regulations stopped international flights, particularly from what we termed high-risk countries. Those were countries that had the highest infection levels. We as South Africa were not ready in terms of quarantine and other facilities to receive large numbers, either of guests or South Africans returning from such countries. So we did delay, I think, initially, but then once we altered the regulations following many appeals from South Africans who were stranded overseas, as well as their families here in South Africa, we began the processes of repatriation. Viewers would recall that the first big repatriation were the students and a few persons employed in Wuhan, in China. Those were dealt with specifically with the support of the Defense Force, primarily due to the number, as well as Wuhan being the epicenter and therefore very worrisome in terms of a health threat to our nationals. Those who we've been returning recently are persons who were on holiday, who were at leisure, who've run out of holiday money, who no longer have accommodation. Some were actually at the airport about to board when our regulations began to be implemented, and so had no means to bring themselves back home. Several governments have been of great assistance. Our biggest challenge has been countries in East Asia. I know Vietnam has been mentioned. We have some persons who are teaching there. We've really said to those who have employment, who are ordinarily resident overseas, and who are not distressed or find themselves in extreme conditions of want, they shouldn't want to be repatriated. It's really the stranded that we've tried to focus upon. But we are working closely with governments. Some are very reluctant to allow flights in because they too are in lockdown. And so we've had to exercise patience. It's a matter of negotiation, engaging with the government. With some countries, for example, Seychelles, there are 21 South Africans. Initially, the government said, let them stay here. We'll take care of them. We know that they've run out of money and so on until we end our lockdown. We don't want our citizens to believe we're not serious about the lockdown. But we appealed to them, and I'm pleased that now we're going to get them back. But there are still those in Vietnam. There are several in Bali, in Thailand. So there's still work to be done. Happily, we will be easing restrictions. But on the travel side, as you know, we have to be very, very careful, because you do recall that imported cases are often a problem countries experience post a lockdown period. So even there, we will have to be very measured with what we do. But we're trying all that we can to assure our citizens and get them back home.
Minister, your department has a very difficult task with other countries also being on lockdown. And as you mentioned, the challenges of getting our aircrafts there to get South Africans safely back home. Now, you've mentioned Vietnam and Bali. Now, from our viewers as well, we've got stories from people who have been evicted from their homes, who, yes, may not have been there on holiday and they live there, but they cannot afford to pay their rent there, so they're out of pocket. Some in Bali who have run out of chronic medication. The department is already doing all it can. But what do you say to those people too right now?
Well, we have been engaging our embassies to say that where our citizens have a problem with respect to chronic medication, we should exhaust every avenue that we can to get medication to them. We did this with some persons who would come off a cruise liner in Italy and they needed medication. We were able, through the support of our embassy, working closely with the Italian authorities, to get their medication to them. So we're trying all that we can, but when there's no movement allowed, it's very difficult to say, I'm going out to get medication for my citizen who is stranded. But we continue to strive, and that's really all I can say. I know it's not satisfactory. I'm, at pains every day. I know persons whose parents have passed away, family members who are elderly are ill, and they call me, and really, we're trying. I promise South Africans, we're trying all that we can. We really are working hard on this. Sometimes I dream of, I can't sleep, worrying about them. But we don't have the resources to charter a plane. Some in the private sector have helped us from time to time, but it is a very, very challenging situation. And as I say, we will continue to strive.
Just listening to you and the pleas that you're hearing and how heavy your shoulders are at this moment is it sounds like a lot to deal with. Just for our viewers, we've also gotten some stories from people who've submitted, and this is what they have to say.
We are two South Africans stranded in Pai Mae Hong Son, Thailand.
We have been stuck here since end of Jan when we were supposed to be going home. Unfortunately, we were told to stay put until we can see what is actually going on. And unfortunately, since then, we have been kicked out of our previous accommodation where we were actually volunteering. Now we have exhausted our funds.
And we're in desperate need to get onto the flight back home to Johannesburg. Not sure when that'll be.
I am from Durban and I'm currently surviving in Bali, Indonesia. I was here studying and my course got cancelled about 5 weeks ago, so I've been trying for 5 weeks to get home. I've lost 2 plane tickets, no refunds either. Most of my group that are here with us in Bali on the WhatsApp group, they are leaving on a private charter, and unfortunately I cannot afford 27,000 Rand for a ticket. I cannot ask anyone for financial assistance. That's too much of a burden to even try come up with that money from anyone.
I'm sending this video to you from Bali. We've just had terrible news that this flight is not going to take off. And that doesn't know if there's another flight coming to fetch us. And it doesn't look like anybody's coming to fetch us anytime soon, and I'm starting to get really scared. I'm all alone here, and somebody please needs to help us to come and just fetch us and bring us home.
For 10 days, and now this dreaded COVID-19 has kept everybody away from each other. I would implore you to find a feasible solution. A 27,000 Rand flight, that excludes the cost for the 14-day quarantine at least 850 Rand a night.
I am in the Philippines currently, My visa is going to be finished now at the end of this month. So first of May, I needed to be out of the country. I did phone the officers, and they said that in the lockdown, there's nothing I can do. There's no public transport. I cannot see anybody. Being a foreigner, they wouldn't even allow me to go to town.
I've got chronic leukemia and need to take my chemotherapy twice a day. I only provided for 2 weeks medication, and today is my 40th day in Bali. I went to the hospital already twice where the doctor issued me some medication, but unfortunately he won't do it anymore. I'm really desperate for any help to get back to South Africa. Please help us.
We also know you as a department have acknowledged the challenges, and it's not only you that you have to focus on in this government, but other governments too. We have a story by Michelle Nal. Now, she's one of the 10 young teachers who were teaching in Vietnam. And this is the correspondence that she got, Minister. I quote the email that said to her from the embassy, "Many South Africans find themselves in a similar situation in both Vietnam and elsewhere in the world. And the SA embassy and the SA minister and government have no immediate solution to the crisis." Minister, if this is the case at hand, and you have really touched on this, in response to a message like that, to somebody sitting penniless and evicted somewhere, what sort of hope can they have right now?
Well, what I will do after this program, I'll ask our Director General to call that ambassador or the embassy official and ask them to provide some help to the citizen who is stranded and without any means, so that at least they can be accommodated somewhere and provided with a meal. I will also approach the Foreign Ministry of Vietnam, because we are in conversation as foreign ministries to just alert them to the particular challenge of our citizens whose contracts have ended, who should ordinarily have come back home, and look at how we are looking now at having a single charter that will deal with the East Asian region. But this is something that I have to obviously get permission for, because it's a cost item we had not planned for. But I will speak to the embassy today through the DG to say they must find this young lady and find a means of helping her.
Minister, is there a message that you would like to share with South Africans right now, specifically those who are desperately wanting to come back home?
Well, I want to assure them that their government cares, that we have had over 3,000 stranded South Africans coming back home, and that several governments we've worked with have been very supportive. So I ask them, don't despair, don't give up, and stay in touch with the embassy. Make sure that the embassies have your details, that we know you are a South African, you have passport details, your ID, and where we can contact you, so that when we do finalize arrangements, we're able to contact you easily and ensure that you're at the point of pickup so that you do return home.
As one of the lucky ones at home with my loved ones right now, I cannot imagine what it feels like to be stranded in a foreign country, especially right now. The South African Depression and Anxiety Group provides telephonic and online counseling for those who are dealing with that exact predicament. Clinical psychologist Mr. Mbele is also on the board of SADC. Mr. Mbele, how does being in a foreign place in lockdown add to one's emotional and psychological strain?
I think being in a foreign place during lockdown is one of the most traumatic things that any individual can experience. And there's several reasons for this. I think that the sense of familiarity is being taken away, which oftentimes gives us a security, not just a security to know of what we're going to do, when, how to access things, that kind of normal feeling that we take for granted. that even if we are ill, we know where to go from here. We know who to ask for help, and we know who not to ask for help. And I think that familiarity is being taken away and is being replaced by a foreignness for a lot of people. And that makes it incredibly traumatic. In addition to that, there must be a deep uncertainty of when will a person go home? When will I be able to land on home soil again, be with friends and family, even if it is still in isolation? And that must be incredibly terrifying for a lot of people who are away. The idea that this will never end can soon become a reality. We must also appreciate that to be oftentimes in a foreign place is part of the luxury and the leisure and the pleasure of traveling. However, there is something about that in the context of pure travel. And that is taken away when you are stranded, in fact. And then the foreignness of language, of place and space, of culture and custom becomes magnified in a way that is threatening for a lot of people too. For those people who are stuck abroad, it may, though, be important to remember that despite the different languages and customs and cultures that are out there, at the end of the day, we are all human. And to try find themselves reaching out to the humanity and the human next to them, because the experiences of fear and anxiety, distress and depression are the same inside of us despite where we are in the world. And comfort can be given non-verbally. Reassurance can really be given non-verbally. And that's important. In addition to that, I think it's also quite important to keep in mind those who are here as well, who have friends and family stuck abroad, you see, because I think that there can be a lot of distress that they too face. And lest we neglect them, lest we neglect the siblings and parents and friends who are experiencing high levels of helplessness and potentially hopelessness too, of not being able to do anything, and the deep frustration of not being able to get those that you love back home at this point. And I think that we need to be attentive there too. And it might be important to remind them, both people and persons, here and away, that it will end, in fact, and this cannot and it will not last for forever.
I actually really appreciate those tips that you are giving for those who are here as well, to support those who are stranded abroad. A few weeks ago on Carte Blanche, we did a story on South Africans stranded abroad, and it was heartbreaking because it really does split families. And just being out of control, being restricted in your movement, having a language barrier, and being in a foreign country where you can't have access to your government officials and you're not hearing any word can be very frustrating. So if you do find yourself in that position, what else would you recommend?
I think that, as I say, it's quite important to find the human that is next to you. So language, we know, is incredibly important in connecting and communicating. And when you're in a foreign place, you find yourself incredibly isolated from those around you. However, to be human transcends that of spoken language and verbal language. And I think at the best of times, even if it's the capacity just to find yourself in a group, and we've seen that, in fact, with a lot of South Africans who are finding other South Africans, just to be in the same environment with is incredibly important. So as far as possible, not to remain stranded by yourself. Find people around you that you can be with during these incredibly difficult times. I think the second one is, as far as possible, to keep abreast with all of the information and insights that are out there. So not just keeping up with the information and the news of the place that you are, so that of back home, which might in fact also replenish something of a sense of foreignness. A reminder that home is still there and it still absolutely exists. Not just home in the physical sense, but also the home in the experience of the people that you left behind. And there is the importance then of the continuity of constant communication with those people that are away and those people who are left behind as well. I think that if I can insert something which is perhaps not quite the absolute topic here, is that as a country and as a society, it might allow us then to really find some sort of empathy for foreign nationals and the experience of being alienated. To know now, through this experience, for the future, that nobody wants to be away from home and how horrible it is. And therefore, those that we do find in our homes, in our country, who are not in their place of original birth, that we too might imagine that they're going through a lot of distress, and be kind to them too.
That is such an important point to actually add in, to say that there are also those foreigners who are stuck in South Africa right now, and they too need the care that our fellow South Africans need to get when they are abroad too. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close this, Mr. Mbele?
I suppose it's quite important to hold on to several ideas of perspective. The first one here is that this too will end, because it has to. It can be entrapping in our minds and hearts to be in this time and to feel as if we will never escape it and it will never escape us. So that in reality, at some point, it will end. And while we may never go back to normal, we will find a new normalcy, which perhaps we can really appreciate and embrace. And that we will say goodbye to the things of the past, and we will mourn and grieve them, but it will give us an opportunity to say hello to some new things, potentially some great innovations, and better ways of doing things that we would have never been called to do unless we had also gone through this crisis.
Thank you very, very much. And our hearts go out to those families who have been split by this. This has been really enlightening. A big thank you to our experts who have been so generous of your time and your advice. Remember to click on the subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes about COVID-19 Q&A. From me, Masa Gegana, stay home, South Africa, and stay safe.